This video is going to go through the practice quiz that you have on EdSite. Let's start with question 1. On question 1, it's asking you to solve by factoring. That means that you need to get this to look like 2 parentheses equals 0. So it's going to be x something equals 0. You need to figure out which two numbers will multiply to give you 12 and add up to 7. So think about ways to multiply to get 12. You've got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. 3 and 4 would give us 7. It's a positive 3 and a positive 4. So positive 3 and positive 4 add up to 7. Positive 3 times positive 4 gives us 12. That is the factored form. To solve it, you have to think about if this set of parentheses is going to equal 0, then x is negative 3. If the second set of parentheses needs to equal 0, x is going to be negative 4. Because negative 3 plus 3 would be 0, negative 4 plus 4 would be 0. So you would type these answers in negative 3 and negative 4. I just drug this little window in to show you this is how you will see it. So you click in a box and type in negative 3. That's the minus sign and then the 3, negative 4. This is set so that no matter which order you put those, you could put negative 3 first, you could put negative 4 first, it should count it as correct. And on the review, there's that check answer button. Did you see I just pushed that check answer button? And you can check to see that you got that question correct. Okay, our next question. Let me get that window out of the way. If you hear coloring, that's my daughter in the background. On question 2, another solve the equation by factoring. So we need to think about two numbers that multiply to give us negative 21 and add up to 4. So we've got 1 times 21, 3 times 7. We can get 4 using 3 and 7. If it's a negative 3 and a positive 7. So the factored form is x minus 3, x plus 7, and that means our solutions are positive 3 and negative 7. And I'll drag this window back over here, type in 3, click the next box, type in negative 7, and here's up at the top is that check answer. Now that check answer button will not be there on the quiz, but it is there for the quiz, for the practice quiz. So you can check your answer and see that you got that correct. Okay. Oops. I'm doing too much here. I'm doing too much. Okay, I got everything rearranged. Number 3 is the same type of problem, except it doesn't say equals 0. So your first step is to rearrange that. So we have x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. We're now looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 15 and add up to 2. That would be 3 times 5, but it would have to be a negative 3 times 5. So x minus 3, x plus 5 equals 0, and that means our factored form is 3 and negative 5. Okay. Question number 4, another factoring problem. This time there's a 2 in front. So this is just reminding you what happens if you have to factor something where there's a 2 in front. So this one you would need to do your 2 times the negative 18. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply to give you whatever 2 times negative 18 is, negative 36. Those same numbers need to add up to 5. Okay, so think about 36. We got 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 9, 4 times 6. Is that it? 5 doesn't work. Oh, not 4 times 6, sorry. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Oh my gosh, I'm all kinds of screwed up here. 4 times 9, 36 divided by 3 is 12, and then 6 times 6. Whew, that was more difficult than it needed to be. All right, 4 and 9 would give us 5 if it was a -4 and a +9. There are two ways to do this factoring. You can factor by grouping, where you do 2x squared minus 4x plus 9x minus 18, split it down the middle, and then factor the groups. If you do it that way, you end up with the first group has 2x in common. Oops, x minus 2. The second group has 9 in common. So the factored form is 2x plus 9, x minus 2. The other way to do this is to just kind of guess and check and figure it out. Here, I'll do this in a different color. So when you're guessing and checking to figure it out, you have to know that this number times this number is going to give you 2x squared. So one of those is going to be 2x, the other one is going to be x. 2x times something is going to give you one of these two numbers with an x after it. So the 2 is probably going to go with the -4x. So 2x times something is -4x. That would be -2. That means that these two have to multiply to give us 9x. So this is going to have to be a +9. And see how I got the same thing both times. Now to solve this one, you need to do 2x plus 9 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0, that's the easy one. X equals 2. The other one, we need to subtract 9 on both sides and then divide both sides by 2 to get -9 halves. And I believe -9 halves works in there, or if you want to type in -4.5, that also works. If this particular problem is freaking you out, don't worry. I have a feeling that the problems on the quiz that involve factoring are going to be more like numbers 1, 2, and 3. So if you feel good about 1, 2, and 3, you're good on the factoring for the quiz. Okay, question number 5. Solve the quadratic equation using the square root method. When you're using square root method, you need to get the thing that is squared by itself. So our first step with this equation is going to be to divide both sides by 3. That is the most commonly missed problem here. People just try to square root both sides, and then they have this square root of 3 to deal with, and they don't know what to do with it. So first, divide both sides by 3, so that we have x squared equals, and if I can remember what 36 divided by 3 is, it's definitely 12. Now that we have the square by itself, we can square root both sides. What you need to remember is when you put a square root in, you have to put a plus minus in front of it. So you might be looking at this and saying, okay, I see the plus minus, but none of these are the square root of 12. You need to simplify the square root of 12. The square root of 12 can be broken into the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. So x equals plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3. Okay, and that's just a simple multiple choice. I don't think I need to show you that on EdSite. You just click the one that you want. Number 6, there's definitely a problem that looks like this on the quiz. Solve using the square root method. You have to get the thing that is squared by itself. So our first step is going to be to add 16 on both sides. So we will have x minus 3 squared equals 16. Then we get rid of the square by square rooting both sides. Don't forget to stick a plus minus in there. So we have x minus 3 equals, thankfully this time, the square root of 16, we can easily do that. The square root of 16 is 4, so we have positive or negative 4. We need to add 3 on both sides, so we have x equals 3 plus or minus 4. Well, notice our answers don't look like that. These are both the same type of number, so you can combine these. Do the problem once using plus. 3 plus 4 is 7. Do the problem again using minus. 3 minus 4 is -1. So our answers are 7 and -1. That would be this answer choice right here. And I think it scatters. So the order that my answers are in, it may not be D on yours, because every time it gives you those multiple choice, it's going to randomize which order they are in. So it's not necessarily D, it's the one that says -1 or 7. Okay, question number 7, factoring quadratic form. And I'm going to make this bold on the quiz, but do you see how this says multiple select? Select all correct answers. On the review, I gave you the hint that there are 2 correct answers. I can't give you that hint on the quiz. So when you see multiple select, I will try to make that bigger and bold so that you definitely see it, but make sure you're reading directions, because if you just click one of these, you're going to get the answer wrong because there are 2 answers that are correct. Okay, factoring quadratic form means that when we factor this thing into 2 sets of parentheses, if this was just x and x, x times x is x squared, we need it to be x to the 4th. So this is going to be x squared and x squared. Otherwise, we treat it the same. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give us 24. Those same 2 numbers have to add up to -14. So 24, we've got 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, I think, right? I'm questioning my, yep, and 4 times 6. -2 and -12 would give us +24 when we multiplied and -14 when we added. So this is x squared minus 2, x squared minus 12. To finish solving this, to solve the left one, we would do x squared minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. X equals plus or minus the square root of 2. So plus or minus the square root of 2 is one of our answers. You also have to do x squared minus 12 equals 0. So x equals positive or negative square root of 12. Well, I don't see the square root of 12 in this list, so we must have to simplify this. Plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3. Those are the 2 answers that are correct for this problem. Again, I have some good news to reassure you. The problem on the quiz that requires you to factor quadratic form is more like number 8 and less like number 7. So let's look at number 8. This is that same type of problem. It says multiple select, choose all the correct answers. It's going to be x squared something times x squared something. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give us 36 and add up to -13. Pause the video, see if you can figure those out on your own really quick. It would be -4 and -9. So x squared minus 4, x squared minus 9. When we do x squared minus 4 equals 0, add 4 to both sides. When you square root, the square root of 4 is 2, so positive or -2 is one of our answers. For the other one, x squared minus 9 equals 0, add 9 to both sides. The square root of 9 is positive or -3. So see how that one doesn't involve simplifying any radicals. It's just take the square root. You just have to remember the plus minus, and you have to remember that there are 2 correct answers. Actually, there are 4 answers here, but I didn't want to have to type out -9, -4, -3, -2, 0, 2, 3, 4, 9, and ask you to circle all of those. So I left the plus minus in there so that it's a little bit easier. You only have to select those 2 answers. But when you are factoring quadratic form, you've got this x squared, oops, got this x squared, yes, I want yellow, x squared and x squared, and you're going to have 2 answers in the multiple select. I'll try to make that obvious. Okay, that's the end of the first video. The second video will hopefully go through the rest of the problems on this review.